Hey ladies and gentlemen, I want to help you with understanding the coordinate plane when we're doing some 3D modeling for mainly for part making. This mainly is going to be about part making, but with us understanding the coordinate plane, that also helps us then when we're also assembling as well. So when we have an object, that object in real life exists in 3 dimensions. It exists in a height dimension, so that would be the y. It exists in a left and right dimension, that would be the x. And it exists in a forward and back dimension, that would be the z. So x, y, and z, those are the names of the different planes. So if we look in the bottom left-hand corner of our picture here, or of our screen, we can see those different planes or those different axes. Again, x, left and right. We can see the arrows pointing to left and right. Y goes up and down. And the z is in and out. So if I am looking just at the front, if I'm looking at just the front view, and I clicked front on our box here, is that now the z is pointing like straight at me. So the z is going that way. And then the y is still going up and down. And the x is still going left and right. So, and again, I can move this box. So to move, when I have an object, I can move it around by clicking the box and dragging it. So just so you know, I can also click home, that'll take me home. So now what we need to think about is this object, our job is to tell the computer what the dimensions are for all 3 of those axes. So we have a little rhyme. That rhyme goes x, y, z, dimension all 3. To say it really cheesy, it's like this. X, Y, Z, dimension all 3. Do it with me. 1, 2, 3. X, Y, Z, dimension all 3. So what that means is you have to give dimensions for all 3 of these axes. In order for us to start creating parts, you're going to create a button, you're going to create the whole Wii remote, whatever. In order for us to do that, we need to give dimensions in all 3 of those axes. If we do not, well, then it's going to be flat, or it's going to be 2 dimensions. When we are first making this, we can't just start and dive in to start making stuff like 3D. The computer doesn't really like that, not with this program. So for us to be precise, what we actually need to start with is with 2D. So imagine we're going to start drawing like we would draw on paper. And then the final thing that we're going to do is after, like, let's say we draw it on paper, is we're going to give it depth. We're going to extend it up or something like that. So if my Wii remote is more so like this, is I'm going to try and pick the plane that best makes sense to look at and draw that. This plane is the X plane. This plane is the Z. This is the Y. I know that because I'm looking at my image in the bottom left here. I can tell what those are. Now here's what I want you to think about is what I want to do is I want to first make this rectangle, because I'm thinking about the shapes that this Wii remote is made out of, and from the top view it is overall a rectangle. It has rounded edges, but we'll worry about that later. So what I'm doing, it's like I'm imagining I'm looking down at it, and I want to draw from a top view that rectangle. So I'm imagining I'm drawing that on a piece of paper. Okay, so then that means if I'm looking down and drawing that rectangle, that means I want to be on this plane, on the X plane. So now notice that this kind of spun me around too, so just keep that in mind. So I'm going to spin that back just so I get it back to the top like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is make that rectangle. And then I'm going to make it the appropriate size. I'm just going to take a guess right now. I'm going to say that the Wii remote is about 6 inches long. And I'm going to take a guess and say that it's about 2 inches wide, just to make things easy on us. So right now, this object is only a 2-dimensional object. It has dimensions in the X plane, it has dimensions in the Z plane, but it has absolutely no dimensions in the Y plane right now. So let's give it some dimensions in the Y plane, and that's what's going to give it some thickness. So to do that, I'm going to extrude it, and let's say 1 inch is fine. So I extruded it 1 inch. Extrude means like pulling or giving depth. So I'm giving it depth. In the y-axis, I'm telling it how tall to be. I'm saying, hey, this box, I want you to be 1 inch tall. Press enter, and there we go. So we have now a three-dimensional object. In the x-axis, we made it, I think it was like 6 inches long. In the z-axis, we made it 2 inches wide. In the y-axis, we made it 1 inch tall. I'm going to add a button to the top. Now, to do that, I have to add another object. Now remember, in order to extrude something, it needs to be a closed two-dimensional object. So before I can extrude and pull something up or extend it or whatever like that, it needs to be a closed shape. And shapes can be all kinds of different things, but obviously this shape, very simple, that's just a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 2D Sketch on the top, and I'm going to do a circle. One thing I notice is I have a black, like a dashed black line that's kind of locking me in, and I notice that that's the center. This button is 1/2 inch in diameter. I finish my sketch. Now this right here, this circle is a two-dimensional object. It's a two-dimensional shape. So now I can extrude it to make it 3 dimensions. And let's say I only wanted 0.125. And there we go. So now this has dimensions in 3 axes. X, Y, Z, dimension all 3. And I did that. In the X and the Z axes, it is 0.5 diameter. And then it sticks up 0.125 inches. That's how far it goes in the Y axis. So again, remember our rhyme, X, Y, Z, dimension all 3. So when you're making parts, you'll give dimensions for all three planes, and then you will have a 3D object.